"Remove this tacky old woman before she ruins the party," my daughter-in-law said to the security guard while my grandson was still blowing out the candles on his birthday cake. My own son stood beside her and said nothing. I smiled, handed the gift bag back to myself, and walked toward the parking lot without a word. 3 hours later, sitting alone in my kitchen with my untouched casserole still warming the house, I opened a sealed envelope my late husband had prepared before he died, and for the first time all evening, I realized Monica Carter had made a terrible mistake. I'm Evelyn Carter. I turned 72 last spring, and until that afternoon, I still believed family embarrassment happened to other people. I believed kindness eventually mattered. I believed that if you loved your children enough, if you sacrificed quietly enough, they would remember who stood beside them when life was difficult. Noah's 8th birthday party was held at a private country club outside Hartford, the kind of place with trimmed hedges shaped like swans and white linen tablecloths set around a heated outdoor patio. Monica loved places that looked expensive in photographs. She loved polished silver trays, pastel balloons arranged by professional decorators, and giant flower walls where guests could take pictures for social media. I arrived 30 minutes early carrying a homemade chocolate cake in one hand and Noah's present in the other. The gift was wrapped in navy paper with silver ribbon, slightly crooked because my arthritis had been bothering my fingers all week. Inside the box was my husband Walter's pocket watch. He'd carried it every day for nearly 40 years. Before he passed, he told me he wanted Noah to have it when the boy was old enough to understand what family meant. I wore my best lavender cardigan despite Monica once calling it a little outdated. I had even gone to the salon 2 days before, because Noah once told me he liked my hair curled. That child had always noticed small things about people. As I walked toward the entrance gate, I could already hear children laughing near the pool area and smell grilled hamburgers drifting through the warm June air. For a moment, hearing Noah's laughter, I forgot the tension that had quietly settled between Monica and me over the past 3 years. I forgot the strange little comments, the missed invitations, the way she introduced me less and less as Noah's grandmother and more as Ryan's mom. I forgot all of it because I only wanted to see my grandson smile when he opened his present. But the moment Monica spotted me near the dessert table, her expression tightened so quickly it looked almost rehearsed. She glanced at my cake first, then at my clothes, then at the gift bag in my hand. "Evelyn," she said with a smile too stiff to be genuine. "I thought we agreed no homemade desserts this year." I tried to keep my tone light. "Oh, this one is just for Noah. He always loved my chocolate cake." Monica laughed softly, but there was no warmth in it. "Well, the caterers already handled everything. We're trying to keep the event elevated." Elevated. That was one of Monica's favorite words lately. Elevated decor. Elevated guests. Elevated standards. As if ordinary people embarrassed her simply by existing. Ryan walked over then, phone in hand, distracted as always lately. "Hey, Mom," he said quickly before kissing the side of Monica's head. "Traffic okay?" I nodded. "Not bad. I brought Noah something special." Before Ryan could answer, Monica's eyes landed on my cardigan again. "Actually," she said quietly, lowering her voice while several nearby parents pretended not to listen, "there's been a little confusion with the guest list." My stomach tightened. Confusion? This area is reserved for close family and sponsors. She smiled again, but this time the smile looked sharp around the edges. "You know how these club events are." I stared at her for a second, unsure if I had heard correctly. "Sponsors?" As though I were some stranger who wandered into a wedding reception. Before I could respond, Noah spotted me across the patio. "Grandma Evelyn," he shouted happily before running toward me in his little blue blazer. My heart lifted instantly. He wrapped his arms around my waist while still holding a half-inflated balloon sword. "You came," he said breathlessly. "Of course I came," I whispered, smoothing his hair. "I wouldn't miss your birthday." But Monica stepped forward almost immediately. "Noah, sweetheart, your friends are waiting for the magician." Her voice stayed sugary sweet, but her fingers tightened around his shoulder. "Go wash your hands first." Noah frowned. "But Grandma brought me something." "Later," Monica said firmly. The boy looked confused but obeyed. Children always notice tension, even when adults pretend they don't. I watched him disappear toward the pool while Monica exhaled slowly, as though my presence alone exhausted her patience. Then she looked toward the front entrance and waved 2 security staff members over with perfectly manicured fingers. The two security men stopped a few feet away from me, both wearing navy blazers with gold club logos stitched over the breast pockets. They looked uncomfortable before either of them even spoke. One of them glanced at Monica first, almost asking permission with his eyes. "Ma'am," he said carefully, "we are going to need to ask you to leave the private event area." Around us, conversations softened into whispers. Silverware clinked against plates somewhere near the buffet table. A little girl dropped a balloon ribbon and stared openly at me before her mother gently pulled her away. I felt every pair of eyes on my cardigan, my homemade cake, my wrinkled hands gripping the gift bag too tightly. Monica folded her arms and tilted her head with that same polished smile she used whenever she wanted to look reasonable in front of strangers. "There has clearly been some misunderstanding with the invitations," she said loudly enough for nearby guests to hear. "I already explained that this event is limited." Limited. The word settled over me heavier than humiliation itself, because I suddenly understood what she truly meant. Limited to people who fit the image she wanted. People with designer handbags and golf memberships and vacation homes in Martha's Vineyard. Not widows wearing sensible shoes and carrying homemade desserts wrapped in aluminum foil. Ryan shifted awkwardly beside her, staring down at his phone as if an email mattered more than the moment unfolding in front of him. I waited for him to say something. Anything. Even a simple, "That is my mother." But he stayed silent. The security guard cleared his throat gently. "Ma'am, if you would come with us, we can help carry your things." Carry your things. As though I were some confused stranger who wandered into the wrong ballroom. My chest felt hollow, almost strangely calm. I handed the cake container to one of the guards and said quietly, "Please make sure Noah gets this later." Monica immediately interrupted. "Actually, we already have dessert handled." Her voice stayed sweet, but her eyes looked cold as winter glass. The younger security guard hesitated before lowering the cake slowly back into my hands. That small hesitation hurt more than cruelty somehow. People always know when something wrong is happening. They just rarely stop it. Near the fountain, I noticed Grace Whitmore standing beside a table of parents from Noah's school. Grace had known me for nearly 15 years. She used to bring casseroles over after Walter passed away. Our eyes met briefly across the patio. Shock flashed across her face first, then embarrassment, then something else. Pity. I looked away before she could walk over. I could not survive pity on top of everything else. Noah suddenly reappeared near the pool entrance holding a paper pirate hat crooked on his head. "Grandma," he called out. "Are you leaving already?" Monica stepped toward him immediately. "Sweetheart, Grandma Evelyn is tired." But she did not even see my magic show yet. His little voice sounded so confused that I nearly broke right there beside the rose bushes. I bent down carefully, my knees aching from the movement, and touched his cheek. "I will see you soon, honey," I whispered. "Happy birthday." Then I slipped the navy gift bag into his hands before Monica could stop me. Noah smiled instantly. "Is this for me?" "Open it later," I told him softly. Monica's expression tightened the second she realized I had given him the present anyway. Ryan finally looked up from his phone then, but not at me. He looked at Monica first, searching her face the way nervous people look for instructions. "Mom," he said awkwardly, "maybe this is not the best day for extra tension." Extra tension. As though I were the problem standing in the middle of my grandson's birthday party. I nodded slowly because suddenly I was afraid that if I spoke honestly, every bit of grief I had swallowed since Walter's funeral would spill out in front of strangers. So I smiled instead. A small, tired smile that made Monica visibly relax. She thought silence meant surrender. Most cruel people do. I walked beside the security staff through the country club lobby while polished marble floors echoed beneath my low heels. Nobody stopped me. Nobody called my name. Outside, the June heat felt heavier than before. I placed the untouched cake carefully on the passenger seat of my old Buick and sat there gripping the steering wheel for several minutes before starting the engine. Through the windshield, I could still see balloons floating above the patio where my family continued celebrating without me. The drive home took 23 minutes, though it felt much longer with the cake sitting untouched beside me like evidence of something I had failed to protect. I kept one hand tight on the steering wheel while the late afternoon sun flashed through the windshield in slow golden streaks. Every red light gave me too much time to think. I thought about Noah standing near the fountain in his little blazer. I thought about Ryan avoiding my eyes. Mostly, I thought about how easily Monica had removed me from that party, as though I had already become invisible long before today. By the time I pulled into my driveway, the sky had started turning soft shades of orange above the maple trees Walter planted 20 years ago. The house looked exactly the same as always. White shutters, small front porch, wind chimes beside the kitchen window. But for the first time since Walter died, the silence inside felt heavier than grief. It felt personal. I carried the cake into the kitchen and set it carefully on the counter without opening the container. The frosting had shifted slightly during the drive. One corner read, "Happy Birthday, Noah," in smudged blue icing. I stared at those words for several seconds before slowly removing my cardigan and folding it. Over the back of a chair, the house smelled faintly like cinnamon candles and old books. Familiar things. Safe things. Yet my hands still trembled when I reached for the kettle. I made tea the same way Walter liked it for 40 years. 2 tea bags. 1 spoonful of honey. A thin slice of lemon. Some habits survive even after the people connected to them disappear. While the water heated, I noticed the blinking light on the answering machine near the refrigerator. Hardly anyone used landlines anymore except people my age and telemarketers. I pressed play absently while staring out the kitchen window. "Evelyn, honey, it is Grace." Her voice sounded rushed. "I saw what happened today. Please call me when you get home." A pause followed. Then softer, "There are some things I think you deserve to know." I did not call immediately. I was too tired to hear sympathy. Sympathy always arrives too late to be useful. Instead, I carried my tea upstairs to the bedroom Walter and I shared for nearly 46 years. His side of the closet still held 3 old flannel shirts because I could never quite bring myself to donate them. His reading glasses still rested inside the top drawer of the nightstand exactly where he left them the week before his heart attack. Grief changes shape with time. At first it crashes into you like waves. Later it settles quietly into ordinary objects. A pair of shoes near the door. A coffee mug nobody else uses. A pocket watch hidden inside a cedar box. I sat on the edge of the bed and finally opened Noah's gift bag that Monica had not managed to stop me from giving him. Inside was the small velvet watch case Walter bought in Boston during our 25th anniversary trip. I remembered him standing in that little antique store, smiling while he wound the watch carefully between his fingers. "One day," he told me back then, "this should go to someone who understands loyalty." At the time, I assumed he meant Ryan eventually. But something changed in Walter during his final years. He stopped trusting appearances, especially Monica's. I stood slowly and walked toward the hallway closet where Walter kept his locked metal document box. Most of the papers. Inside were insurance forms and old tax returns, things too boring to matter now. But beneath the folders sat a large sealed envelope with my name written across the front in Walter's uneven handwriting. "Evelyn. Private." I had noticed it before after the funeral, but never opened it. At the time, the sight of his handwriting alone hurt too much. Tonight felt different somehow. Tonight the envelope seemed less like part of the past, and more like something waiting patiently for this exact moment. Downstairs, my phone suddenly rang. The sound startled me in the quiet house. Grace again. I let it ring twice before answering. "Evelyn," she said softly the second I picked up. "I am so sorry." I closed my eyes briefly. "You saw all of it." "Enough," she replied carefully. Then her voice lowered. "But that is not why I called. Monica has been telling people things about you for months. Awful things. And after what happened today, I think you need to know exactly what kind of woman your daughter-in-law really is." I sat down slowly in Walter's old leather chair near the bedroom window while Grace spoke quietly through the phone. Outside, evening shadows stretched across the backyard where Ryan used to play baseball with his father every summer after dinner. I could still picture him at 12 years old, laughing every time he missed the ball because Walter always pretended to miss worse just to make him feel better. Back then our family felt simple, honest. "Evelyn," Grace said carefully, "Monica has been telling people at the club that you have memory problems." I frowned slightly. "What?" "She says you get confused, that you show up uninvited to things. She told several parents today that she was worried you might cause a scene at the party." The room suddenly felt colder despite the warm June air drifting through the open window. I looked down at my hands resting in my lap. The same hands that packed Ryan's lunches for 12 straight years. The same hands that held his forehead through childhood fevers and signed checks for his college tuition when Walter's business struggled. Strange how quickly sacrifice becomes invisible once people no longer need it. There is more, Grace continued softly. I almost did not tell you because I did not want to hurt you. I closed my eyes briefly. Please just say it. A pause followed. Then, Monica told people you have become emotionally unstable since Walter passed away. She said today was difficult because you refused to accept boundaries. Boundaries. Another one of Monica's favorite words. Modern words that sounded polite while hiding cruelty underneath them. I remembered Christmas 2 years earlier when Monica suddenly announced they were spending the holiday in Aspen with friends instead of coming home. Ryan apologized by text message at 11:30 Christmas Eve. The message was only 3 sentences long. At the time, I told myself young families get busy. I told myself not to take it personally. Then there was Thanksgiving last year when Monica changed dinner from my house to a restaurant 40 minutes away without telling me until the morning of the reservation. By the time I arrived, everyone had already eaten appetizers. Noah was the only one who looked genuinely happy to see me. The memories came slowly at first, then all at once. Little moments I dismissed because I wanted peace more than honesty. Monica correcting the way I folded napkins in my own kitchen. Monica laughing when I brought homemade cookies to Noah's school fundraiser because parents buy gourmet now. Monica once introducing me to her friends as Ryan's very traditional mother. Traditional, as though love and loyalty had somehow become outdated hobbies. Grace sighed softly into the phone. I should have spoken sooner. No, I said quietly. I think I simply refused to see it. And that was the truth hurting most deeply inside me. Not Monica's cruelty. Not even Ryan's silence. It was the realization that I spent years making excuses for behavior that slowly erased me piece by piece. I stood and walked toward Walter's closet while still holding the phone. Do you remember, Grace asked gently, about 6 months before Walter passed away when he stopped letting Monica handle the charity accounts? I stopped moving. Yes. Walter never explained it clearly back then. He only said some paperwork felt careless. It was not carelessness, Grace said. My husband saw Monica using the club charity account to cover personal expenses. Nothing illegal exactly, but enough that Walter became concerned. I tightened my grip on the phone. Suddenly memories shifted again inside my mind. Walter becoming quieter around Monica during his last year alive. Walter insisting on reviewing trust paperwork himself instead of letting Ryan handle it digitally. Walter once saying at dinner, very calmly, "Image is expensive when people build their lives around it." At the time, Monica laughed politely and changed the subject. I reached for the sealed envelope resting beside the document box and traced Walter's handwriting with my fingertips. Grace, I asked slowly, did Walter ever tell you he changed anything financially before he died? Silence filled the line for several seconds. Then Grace answered carefully, Evelyn, I think your husband understood exactly who Monica was long before today. Downstairs, thunder rumbled faintly in the distance beyond the trees. Summer storms always rolled in quietly where we lived. One moment the sky looked peaceful. The next moment, everything changed. After I ended the call with Grace, the house became silent again except for the low rumble of thunder moving closer outside. Rain tapped softly against the bedroom windows in uneven rhythms while I sat beside Walter's document box holding the sealed envelope in both hands. For several minutes, I simply stared at my name written across the front in blue ink faded slightly with time. Walter's handwriting had always leaned a little to the right whenever he wrote quickly. Seeing it now felt strangely intimate, like hearing his voice unexpectedly in a crowded room. I finally slid one finger beneath the envelope flap and opened it carefully. Inside were several folded documents and one handwritten letter clipped neatly to the front. My hands trembled slightly as I unfolded the paper. Evelyn, if you are reading this, then something has already gone very wrong inside our family. The sentence alone made my chest tighten. Walter had always been practical, never dramatic. He did not leave emotional speeches or sentimental notes hidden in drawers. He fixed things quietly, paid bills on time, repaired broken fences before anyone else noticed them leaning. For him to write something like this meant he had been worried long before his death. Outside, rain began falling harder against the roof while I continued reading. There are truths people hide behind good manners and expensive clothing. Monica cares deeply about appearances, but appearances are fragile things. I have spent the last 2 years protecting what belongs to Noah, because one day he will need someone in this family who values people more than status. I lowered the letter slowly into my lap. My heartbeat had become uneven now. Beneath the note sat copies of legal documents stamped with the name of Walter's attorney in Hartford. I recognized the law office immediately. Walter trusted only one attorney for nearly 30 years. The first document listed the details of Noah's educational trust fund. The second document made my stomach drop entirely. Co-trustees, Walter Carter and Evelyn Carter. Successor authority transfers fully to Evelyn Carter upon the death of Walter Carter. I read the line 3 times before fully understanding it. Walter had not left control of Noah's trust to Ryan. He left it to me. A cold realization slowly settled over the room. Ryan did not know. Monica certainly did not know. All these months, perhaps all these years, they assumed I was simply an aging widow living quietly inside an old house filled with memories. They saw me as sentimental, outdated, easy to dismiss. Meanwhile, Walter had legally placed Noah's future entirely under my protection. I stood and walked slowly downstairs carrying the documents with me. The kitchen lights cast soft reflections across the dark windows, while rainwater streamed down the glass outside. I poured another cup of tea, though it had already gone lukewarm in the kettle. My mind kept replaying little moments differently now. Monica encouraging Ryan to simplify family finances after Walter's funeral. Monica asking strange questions about whether I planned to downsize the house. Monica once casually mentioning private schools costing a fortune these days, while watching my reaction too carefully. She had been calculating something all along. The phone rang again around 9:30. This time it was Ryan. I stared at his name glowing across the screen for several seconds before answering. "Hi, Mom." His voice sounded cautious, almost rehearsed. "I just wanted to check if you got home all right." "Home all right." Not "I am sorry." Not Monica crossed a line. Just careful words, chosen to smooth over embarrassment without touching the wound underneath. "I got home safely," I answered quietly. A short silence followed. In the background I could hear muffled music and children shouting somewhere far behind him. The party was apparently still going. "Monica thinks things became emotional today," he said finally. "You know how stressful hosting these events can get." I closed my eyes briefly. Even now, he was protecting her comfort over my humiliation. "Ryan," I asked softly, "did you know security was going to escort me out?" Another silence. Longer this time. "Mom," Monica was trying to avoid a scene. I looked down at Walter's letter resting beside my teacup. For the first time all evening, something inside me stopped hurting and started hardening instead. Not anger exactly. Clarity. Quiet and cold. "I see," I replied calmly. Ryan exhaled in relief, mistaking my calmness for surrender again. "Good. I knew you would understand." But after we hung up, I unfolded the final page Walter left behind. At the bottom, beneath his signature, one sentence stood alone. "If the day ever comes when they treat you like a burden, Evelyn, promise me you will remember your worth before you remember your guilt." The storm passed sometime after midnight, leaving the house wrapped in that strange silence that only comes after heavy summer rain. I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Noah standing beside the fountain holding the gift bag, while Monica watched me like someone removing a stain from expensive fabric. Around 6 in the morning, I gave up on sleep entirely and went downstairs to make coffee. The kitchen smelled faintly of rain drifting through the cracked window above the sink. Walter used to wake before sunrise every day, no matter how late he worked. By 6:30, he would already be reading the newspaper at the table, wearing his old gray robe and complaining about the Yankees bullpen. I missed ordinary things like that more than grand moments. Grief does not live in dramatic memories. It hides inside routines. I carried my coffee to the dining room and spread Walter's documents carefully across the table. The trust paperwork was detailed, precise, impossible to misunderstand. Noah's education fund alone was worth far more than I expected. Walter had also included instructions limiting withdrawals until Noah turned 25 unless both trustees approved exceptions together, which now meant me alone. I traced the edge of the papers slowly while morning light crept across the hardwood floor. For the first time since Walter died, I understood why he had seemed restless during his final months. He was not afraid of death. He was afraid of what would happen afterward. My phone buzzed softly near the sugar bowl. A text from Monica. I almost laughed seeing her name appear so early. Good morning, Evelyn. Yesterday became unfortunate for everyone. I think it would be healthiest moving forward if we create a little space and avoid emotional misunderstandings around Noah for a while. Healthy boundaries are important. No apology. No shame. Just polished language carefully arranged to make cruelty sound responsible. I read the message twice before setting the phone face down beside my coffee. Then another message arrived. Also, Noah loved the gift. Though honestly, antique valuables are difficult for children to appreciate properly. Valuable. There it was. That word mattered more to Monica than sentiment ever would. I stared at the rainwater still clinging to the backyard roses outside the window and suddenly remembered something small but strange from nearly a year earlier. Monica visiting unexpectedly one afternoon while Walter was in the hospital. She wandered through the house complimenting antiques she had ignored for years, asking casual questions about insurance appraisals, pausing too long beside Walter's grandfather clock in the hallway. At the time, I assumed stress. Made me suspicious. Now, every memory rearranged itself differently. Around 9 o'clock, Grace arrived carrying blueberry muffins from the bakery downtown. She hugged me tightly the moment I opened the door. You look exhausted, she said softly. I feel older today than I did yesterday, I admitted. We sat together at the kitchen table while sunlight slowly pushed through thinning clouds outside. Grace glanced toward the trust documents spread neatly beside my coffee cup. So you opened Walter's letter. I nodded once. He knew. Grace looked down quietly. I think he suspected Monica valued money and image more than family. But I do not think even he imagined she would humiliate you publicly. I picked at the paper wrapper around my muffin without eating it. Ryan let it happen. Saying the words aloud hurt differently than thinking them. Grace sighed heavily. Ryan has spent years choosing the easier path. Monica always makes him feel like peace depends on agreeing with her. I looked toward Walter's empty chair again. That is not peace, I said quietly. That is surrender. Grace hesitated before speaking again. There is something else you should know. Her voice lowered carefully. Monica has been trying to join the board of the Hartford Children's Foundation. Walter quietly blocked it before he passed. I frowned slightly. Why? Because the foundation reviews family financial histories carefully. Walter discovered Monica carried far more debt than she admitted publicly. Debt. Suddenly, the expensive parties and designer handbags looked less impressive in my mind. More desperate. Grace continued gently. I think Monica believed controlling appearances would eventually lead to controlling everything else. Everything else. The house. The trust. The family narrative itself. I folded Walter's letter carefully back into its envelope. Something inside me had changed overnight. Yesterday, I still wanted understanding. Today, I wanted clarity. And clarity can be a dangerous thing once a quiet person finally possesses it. 3 days passed before Ryan finally came to see me. Not because he wanted to, I suspected, but because Monica could no longer control the conversation through carefully written text messages. I was trimming dead roses near the front porch when his black SUV pulled into the driveway just after lunch. The sky hung low and gray again, heavy with summer humidity. Ryan stepped out slowly wearing pressed khakis and sunglasses even though there was barely any sun. He looked tired, older somehow. Stress had begun settling around his eyes the same way it once settled around Walter's during difficult years at the company. For a moment, watching my son walk toward me across the driveway, I remembered him at 16 carrying groceries into this same house after football practice, apologizing because he accidentally bruised an apple. Back then he hated disappointing people. Somewhere along the way, that boy disappeared. Mom, he said carefully when he reached the porch. Can we talk? I set the pruning shears down beside the flower pot and nodded once. Coffee. He looked relieved by my calmness. Sure. Inside, the house smelled faintly of lemon polish and fresh bread. I baked that morning for the first time since Walter died. Something about kneading dough with my hands helped quiet the noise in my head. Ryan sat at the kitchen table while I poured coffee into Walter's Old Navy mug without asking whether he still took cream. Mothers remember things even when children stop noticing. For several minutes, neither of us spoke. The clock above the stove ticked steadily in the silence. Finally, Ryan cleared his throat. Monica thinks things have gotten blown out of proportion. I stirred my coffee slowly. Did Monica send you here to say that? His jaw tightened slightly. No, I came because you have barely answered my calls. I looked up then. Ryan, security escorted me out of your son's birthday party. He rubbed one hand across his forehead immediately. That was not how Monica intended it to happen. How exactly did she intend it to happen? My voice stayed calm, but calmness often unsettles guilty people more than anger. Ryan looked down at the table instead of answering directly. She just wanted the event to run smoothly. There were clients there from the club, sponsors, parents from private school, applications. I almost smiled hearing him repeat Monica's language so perfectly, as if expensive people required protection from elderly women carrying homemade cake. Do you know what hurt most? I asked quietly. It was not Monica. Ryan finally looked at me then. It was watching my own son stand beside her while strangers removed me from a family celebration. His face shifted slightly at that. Shame perhaps, or discomfort, but still not accountability. Mom, he said carefully. You know Monica worries about appearances. I stared at him in disbelief for several seconds before answering. And when did appearances become more important than dignity? He had no response to that. Rain began tapping softly against the kitchen windows again. Summer storms had become constant lately, rolling in almost every afternoon like unfinished conversations. Ryan reached for his coffee, but never drank it. Monica feels like you judge her. I let out a tired breath. Ryan, your wife introduced me as an elderly relative at Noah's birthday party. She did not mean it badly. No, I replied softly. She meant it precisely the way she said it. Silence filled the kitchen again. Then Ryan noticed the legal folders stacked neatly beside the fruit bowl on the counter. His expression changed instantly. What are those? I followed his eyes calmly. Your father's trust documents. He sat straighter immediately. Why are you reviewing those? There it was. Not concern. Not curiosity about Walter's wishes. Anxiety. I folded my hands together carefully before answering. Because Walter wanted me informed. Ryan's face tightened almost invisibly. Mom, you do not need to involve yourself in complicated financial matters. Monica and I already have advisors handling most things now. I almost pitied him in that moment. He still believed authority belonged naturally to him, that eventually everything would pass quietly into his hands, because that was how families worked now. Children inherited. Widows stepped aside gracefully. But Walter had understood something Ryan never did. Entitlement grows best inside people who mistake patience for weakness. I stood slowly and carried my untouched coffee cup to the sink. Your father trusted me completely, I said without turning around. You should ask yourself why. Ryan left 20 minutes later carrying more discomfort than answers. I watched his SUV disappear down the street through thin curtains still damp from the humid afternoon air. He never touched the second cup of coffee. The surface remained perfectly still long after he drove away, a pale reflection trembling faintly beneath the kitchen light. That night, I sat alone on the back porch listening to cicadas hum through the dark, while Walter's letter rested folded inside my sweater pocket. Some people think clarity arrives like lightning. Sudden, dramatic. But real clarity comes quietly. It arrives in the small moment when excuses stop sounding believable even to the person repeating them. By the following week, things inside Hartford's country club community had already begun shifting. Wealthy neighborhoods survive on politeness, but they feed on gossip. Grace told me several parents were uncomfortable after witnessing what happened at Noah's birthday. One mother quietly withdrew from Monica's charity committee. Another stopped returning her calls altogether. Monica had spent years building herself carefully inside those circles. Perfect family photographs, elegant fundraisers, designer dresses chosen to look effortless. But cruelty embarrasses people once it becomes public, especially cruelty toward an elderly woman who never raised her voice. Grace visited again Thursday afternoon carrying iced tea and supermarket flowers. We sat in the sunroom while soft jazz played from Walter's old radio near the bookshelf. You should hear the stories now, Grace said, shaking her head slightly. Apparently Monica has been telling people you struggle emotionally since Walter passed away. I stirred my tea slowly. That story probably worked better before she had security escort me out of a child's birthday party. Grace almost smiled. Exactly. Then her expression softened again. Ryan still does not know about the trust, does he? No, and Monica? I looked out toward the backyard where fallen leaves collected beneath the maple trees despite it still being summer. She knows even less than he does. Grace leaned back quietly after that. Neither of us needed to say the obvious part aloud. Monica built her confidence on assumptions. She assumed older women stayed silent to preserve family peace. She assumed widows became fragile and dependent. Most dangerously of all, she assumed kindness meant weakness. My phone buzzed later that evening while I watered the porch plants. A text message from Noah appeared beside a little blue heart emoji. "Grandma Evelyn, thank you for the watch. Dad said it belonged to great-grandpa." I smiled despite myself reading his uneven spelling and missing punctuation. Children still speak honestly before adults train caution into them. Another message followed immediately after. "Mom says you are upset with us. Are you still coming to my school concert next month?" My chest tightened painfully. I sat down slowly in Walter's porch chair before answering. "Of course I am coming, sweetheart. I would never miss it." 3 little typing bubbles appeared instantly, then disappeared, then returned again. Finally Noah wrote, "I am glad." The magician at my party was not even funny. I laughed softly for the first time in days. Real laughter. Small but genuine. The kind that catches you unexpectedly between sadness. But the warmth lasted only briefly because 10 minutes later another message arrived. This one from Monica. "I think it would be best if communication with Noah goes through Ryan and me moving forward. We are trying to establish consistency and emotional stability for him." Emotional stability. Again with the polished phrases designed to sound thoughtful while quietly removing me from my own family. I stared at the screen for several seconds before locking the phone without replying. The following morning, I drove downtown to meet Walter's attorney for the first time since the funeral. His office smelled like old paper and expensive leather chairs. Mr. Bennett looked older than I remembered, his silver hair thinner now, but his handshake remained steady. He listened quietly while I described the birthday party and the weeks leading up to it. When I finished speaking, he removed his glasses, slowly, and folded them on the desk. Walter anticipated conflict eventually, he admitted carefully. He worried Monica viewed family assets as social leverage rather than responsibilities. Hearing someone else confirm it aloud made everything feel heavier somehow. More real. Mr. Bennett opened a file drawer beside his desk and removed another folder stamped with Walter's name. "There are additional provisions connected to Noah's trust," he explained calmly, "particularly regarding guardianship influence and financial conduct." My heartbeat slowed strangely at those words. Not from fear, from certainty. Walter had not simply protected money. He had protected Noah from becoming shaped by the wrong kind of values. And suddenly I understood something Monica never had. Real power does not need to announce itself loudly. Sometimes it waits quietly in sealed envelopes until the exact moment dignity finally decides to defend itself. The school concert took place 3 weeks later inside the elementary auditorium on a warm Thursday evening in July. Rows of folding chairs filled the gymnasium, and paper stars painted by second graders hung crookedly across the walls beneath fluorescent lights that buzzed softly overhead. Parents carried bouquets and smartphones while children in matching blue shirts hurried nervously behind the stage curtains. I arrived 20 minutes early wearing a cream-colored blouse Walter once said made me look elegant. I sat quietly near the middle row with my purse folded neatly in my lap and Noah's concert program resting between my hands. Around me, families chatted in low, cheerful voices about summer vacations and piano lessons and weekend soccer schedules. Ordinary conversations. Ordinary love. The kind of moments people rarely appreciate until they become complicated. Monica entered the auditorium several minutes later wearing a pale designer pantsuit and high heels entirely impractical for an elementary school gym floor. Ryan walked beside her carrying Noah's jacket over one arm while checking work emails on his phone. Some habits never changed. Monica spotted me almost immediately. For a brief second, something unreadable crossed her face. Surprise perhaps, or irritation. But she recovered quickly, smoothing invisible wrinkles from her sleeve before guiding Ryan towards seats several rows ahead of me. They did not wave. They did not invite me closer. Yet somehow their distance no longer wounded me the way it once had. Because pain loses some of its power once truth finally replaces confusion. The auditorium lights dimmed a few moments later, and the children began filing onto the risers. Noah stood near the front row, clutching a small plastic recorder in both hands. The second he saw me sitting there, his face brightened instantly. Real joy. honest and uncomplicated. He lifted one hand and waved enthusiastically before Monica gently tugged his sleeve back down. I smiled anyway. During the third song, while children sang slightly off-key about sunshine and friendship, I noticed Ryan turn around slowly in his seat. Our eyes met for the first time in nearly 2 weeks. He looked exhausted. Not physically, spiritually, like someone finally beginning to understand the cost of avoiding difficult truths for too long. After the performance ended, parents crowded toward the stage carrying flowers and cameras, while children searched the audience for familiar faces. Noah spotted me immediately and ran across the gym floor before either parent could stop him. "Grandma Evelyn," he shouted happily before wrapping both arms around my waist. I held him tightly, breathing in the familiar scent of shampoo and crayons and little boy sweat beneath his concert shirt. "You played beautifully," I whispered. "I missed one note," he admitted seriously. "Only one," I said softly. "That is still better than most grown adults." He laughed against my shoulder. Behind him, Monica approached more slowly this time. Her expression remained polished, but the confidence she wore so naturally before had begun cracking around the edges. Hartford's social circles had not been kind to her lately. Grace told me 2 charity boards quietly stopped returning Monica's calls. Several mothers from the country club no longer invited her to planning lunches. People who build their lives around appearances rarely survive public embarrassment. Gracefully, Ryan stopped beside us, looking uncomfortable in the thick, humid air of the crowded gymnasium. For a moment, nobody spoke. Then Noah reached into his pocket carefully and pulled out Walter's old pocket watch attached to a small silver chain. "I brought it to show my friends," he said proudly. "Mom said maybe I should keep it safe at home, but I wanted everybody to see it." Monica's jaw tightened almost invisibly. Ryan looked at the watch differently now too. Not as an antique, as a symbol, a reminder that Walter trusted me with things deeper than money. Noah slipped the watch carefully back into his pocket before running off toward a table of classmates near the exit. The moment he disappeared, silence settled between the 3 of us again. Finally, Ryan spoke quietly. "Mom, can we come by Sunday? Maybe have dinner together?" Not because Monica wanted reconciliation. I could hear that much in her silence. But Ryan looked tired of dividing himself between comfort and conscience. I studied my son carefully beneath the fluorescent gym lights. The same boy who once cried when he accidentally stepped on a bird's nest while mowing the lawn. Somewhere beneath all the weakness and avoidance, pieces of that gentle child still existed. "You can come Sunday," I answered calmly. Monica looked surprised by how easily I agreed. But forgiveness and access are not the same thing. Walter taught me that much before he died. As families slowly filtered out of the auditorium into the warm summer night, I remained seated for one final moment, holding Noah's concert program in my hands. 3 weeks earlier, security escorted me out of a birthday party like an inconvenience people wanted hidden from view. Tonight, my grandson searched an entire auditorium just to find my face in the crowd. And suddenly I understood something simple but important. They had tried to make me feel small because small people are easier to control. But dignity does not disappear simply because others fail to recognize it. Sometimes it waits quietly inside you until the moment you finally remember your own worth.